What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Meaning of Podcast. I am Andres, obviously here with RB3, but joining us today, we have Mr. TV man himself, Josh Macuga, in the house. What is up, man?
What's up, boys? How we doing?
Good, man. Good. Excited to have you on. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the TV shows of 2020 and kind of the future of where TV is headed now. But before we do that, Josh, I definitely want to give you a chance, first of all, to catch up with you to see what you've been up to, but mainly to talk about GPA and how that's going right now.
Yeah, things are great. You know, we got a really cool opportunity. Eric Bass from the band Shinedown reached out to Mark Riley, and then Mark Riley reached out to Ken and myself. And you know, I was post Eating History, and you know, unfortunately, we didn't get renewed for a season 2, which we can obviously talk about as we start talking about TV. But and I was kind of looking for the next thing, as all of us are in this pandemic. It's like, what can we do? What can we do to stay busy? What can we do to move forward, especially in entertainment? What can be shot? What can't be shot? You know, I thought I would, you know, with Eating History, we were on like a really good clip. And I think with no pandemic, I think we'd have shot season 2 already, be like airing season 2 and be shooting season 3 right now. But obviously the world had different ideas. But you know, with one door shutting, another door opens. And, you know, Mark, Ken, and I kind of sat around and said, if we're going to do this, what do we want this to look like? What do we want this to do? Because we've all been a part of different channels that we loved being a part of, but that, you know, had maybe worn out their welcome. I don't want to say that about Schmoes, because I think that Schmoes Know was, when it was what it was one of the coolest things that we all ever did together. You know, we had like such an amazing time doing some wild stuff. Oh, yeah. But you know, like anything, I think you live, you learn, you move on. People moved on to different things, and that is what it is when you look back, and especially in entertainment. I mean, you can't do Modern Family for 35 seasons.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You know, and you can't, if you're doing a soap opera, yeah, you can do 55 years of a soap opera because it's the same plot line rewritten every, you know, 2 or 3 months. So it is what it is. But, you know, Ken, Mark, and I kind of talked about it with Eric, and we figured out an angle that we wanted to take, and, you know, showing positivity and trying to do positive content, welcoming people into the chat, welcoming people into programming, trying not to have anything, you know, toxic, really become part of, like, be a safe place on the internet. Because as we know, as we've all experienced, some more than others, that the internet can be a really tough place sometimes. And so we wanted to focus all of our energy on promoting unity, positivity, and good people on both sides of the spectrum. You know, that I think we can all get along. I think that there's a huge vocal minority of bad people out there, you know, on the far left and the far right. And we're trying to all come together as a people and, like, you know, look at it in a way of, let's be better. Let's try and have conversations and not just arguments, and, you know, try and put a smile on people's face, laugh about all the stuff in our lives, and, you know, try and do good, you know, like in a roundabout way. And so we decided on the Good People Association. We decided on what we wanted the content to look like. We decided on how we wanted to kind of attack it. And then, you know, lucky enough that Mark Riley, Ken, and I have been working together for so long that we knew each other's strengths, and we knew each other's weaknesses, and we knew what we could rely on each other with. And then I was given the opportunity / responsibility of building this place out. And luckily, you know, I had built my apartment into a sound stage for the Josh Macuga show. So I had a general idea of what I needed to do and how I needed to do it. But I really flexed that carpentry muscle that I hadn't flexed since I was 17, 18, 19 years old. So yeah, here we are, man. Here we are.
Crazy production designer Josh, man.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I've done that. I produced a couple talk shows, and one of the main things was getting the set design, especially when it is talk show. So you're like, all right, I want a couch, and you're like, okay, what couch? What color is the couch? Where is the couch placed? Who's sitting on the couch? It's like everything has to be designed perfectly when you're producing a show. So it's a real thing, even if it is a talk show. So I get it, man. Totally. Real quick, what kind of programming, what kind of shows you guys have on there?
So the Positivity Report that I host every morning is an hour-long morning show. We have some of the guests that we've had on before. I've been reaching out to a lot of people that haven't been on a lot of shows that you may have seen me on or that we've done in the past. You know, whether it's this woman that rescued a beaver in upstate New York that I found on TikTok, to a girl in Media, Pennsylvania, who went around during Christmas time and did a GoFundMe for local restaurant workers and was handing out $100 bills to restaurant workers that were struggling during the pandemic. And this woman named Lonnie Pike, who goes by Gray Hair and Tattoos on Instagram and TikTok. And she's just this older woman that's gone through a lot in her life. And she's just spreading a positive message about, being older and owning yourself, and, just trying to show every spectrum of life out there on the positivity report, while also just, being me and kind of joking around for an hour right in the morning. And then every evening, because we have 2 live shows a day. So every evening, so Riley does his Star Wars show on Monday. And I have not been a guest on that yet for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And then Tuesdays we do a movie show, which is really just tuned into us giggling about movies for an hour. Very little news gets to. Wednesday is just our live show where we kind of hang out, shoot the shit. We have a crock pot that streams live on Twitch every Wednesday.
I heard about this. I heard about it. Yeah.
And then Thursday's the only podcast, which is the Afternoons with Josh, Ken, and Amanda. Which we brought over from back in the day when it was just Ken and I. And then Amanda took my seat when I did Eating History, and then we figured to just keep her on.
Yeah.
And then Friday,
amazing podcast, by the way.
Thanks,
show.
buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then on Fridays we do Josh Pretty, which has become, my tagline was the fastest game show on the internet, and it's really not about what's in your brains; it's what the answer is, mostly, because there's some trivia, but mostly it's what am I thinking. So it's sort of like throwing people a curveball. So
I love it. I think that's my favorite show, man. I've seen it a few times. I've seen you with the kind of funny guys on there too.
Yeah.
I remember this. This is I think I texted you about it one time when I caught it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I love Josh Pretty. I think it's hysterical.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. So we're working on some behind the paywall stuff. We're working on some stuff to do on Twitch. Obviously, people raised enough money to buy one of those virtual reality things to scare the crap out of me. So we're going to do some scary games, and we got a lot in the works here, trying to build this brand and, do some fun stuff, and all in the maelstrom, one of a pandemic and me becoming a father. So figuring out what life looks like with a baby, everybody, here's the crazy part is, and you guys, you'll get there, is when you're engaged to be married, everybody has a word of advice for you. And they're like, listen, I'll tell you something about marriage. Okay. Listen to your wife. Don't, everybody's got something to say. Right? It's like it's so silly. Like every old guy's like, let me tell you, I've been married 45 years. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that my wife is usually right. Yeah. And then it's like, all right. But then when you have a kid, when you're about to have a kid, the advice it's a one-note advice, like, yo, life's about to change. And I'm like, I get it. I didn't think I was getting like, hey, I got a kid, still going to go to Barney's 4 nights a week and black out. Like I get it. So everybody's got something to say. Some people have some good advice, some people don't, but everybody pretty much says the same thing. Amanda's going to be a great mom. I was kind of born to be a silly dad, so I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
I totally get it, man. I used to, when I moved out to LA, literally my first year in LA, I lived with my brother. And my brother at the time had 6 kids. He currently, I think he's on to 8 now. Yeah, my brother has like 8 kids, man. Well, he has 7 kids, but yeah.
So was a Rolling Stone.
Yeah, and then when I moved in with him, I didn't realize how much kids take up your life until I moved in with my brother and saw what it was, and I was like, "Oh, I get now why people wait to have kids."
Yes.
Literally, like your life is done. It's done.
It's over. And listen, man, I've been here 39 years. I had my fun and it was awesome. And I'm not saying that like, oh my God, I'm having a kid. No, I mean, I live my life. I always say to Amanda, is like, if we had met in our 20s, there's no way we'd be married. But I waited this long and I'm just super excited, man. My brother's got 4 kids. I see what it's like. Amanda's sisters have tons of kids. I mean, I come from a big family, so I see what it is. And, excited to shape a young mind and mold a human and be a good parent. It's
totally,
Yeah,
I totally know what you mean, man. It's definitely when you're like, when you reach a certain age, you're just like, I got to do it now, otherwise it's never gonna happen.
Right, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not, the crazy thing too is like, if it was impossible, right, we wouldn't have a human race, right? So it's tough. I know it's tough, but it's also everybody talks about it. It's going to be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. Of course, it's going to be a test. Of course, it's going to be tough. Anything that's worth doing is. So let's do it.
Definitely have fun with it and try to laugh at your kid as much as you can. That's what I'm always going to try and do. But go ahead, yeah.
And then RB3 knows we were talking about it. Just counting down the days to when I can show her Bad Boys 2. I'm starting with Bad Boys 2, and then if she loves it, which she will, then we go Bad Boys, then we go Bad Boys for life.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's the right order. That's the correct order.
It's gonna be a little bit of a wait, but either way, it's gonna be worth it.
Wait, how young do you show your baby daughter Bad Boys 2?
It's up to Josh.
Well, I want to know when she first comes home. She's like, I think I like this boy, and then I show her Bad Boys 2, and I was like, you bring the boy home, he's gonna get the Reggie treatment, just so you know.
Yeah, it works out.
Yeah.
But either way, Josh, you are here to talk about TV with us. Obviously, this past year, 2020, was kind of a crazy year for TV because RB3 and I have discussed, like for years, kind of the changing atmosphere and the changing world that has become streaming and TV. Disney had their meeting, I believe, summer of last year, where they basically said, we're moving on from theaters and we're going to just focus on streaming.
Yeah.
Basically, we just want to make as many TV shows as possible because that's where it's at. HBO Max said that they're going to release their movies on streaming only this year, releasing more movies on streaming. And then obviously Netflix has been kicking everyone's ass just by streaming as much content as possible. So we know that TV is kind of taken over to a point that I personally feel, and RB3 and I have felt this way, where now we're in a COVID world where theaters aren't open or people aren't going to the ones that are open.
Sure.
So for the most part, people are staying home and watching TV more than ever. I'm curious where your head is at as far as what you think streaming is going, because I have my ideas and my thoughts I'll throw at you, but I want to definitely get your opinion first.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty excited when they had that HBO Max announcement, to be honest with you. Because I've been saying it for a long time. I've never been a huge movie going guy. You know what I mean? I've been like, Amanda and I might go see a movie once every few weeks, maybe once a month, depending on how excited we were for movies. I mean, obviously there's some must-go movie experiences that you have, but I've never been like, I'm going to go and see an indie movie at the theaters. And I've always been on the impression that like, hey, if you're going to go on a date night, and now with a kid, it's going to be even harder. If you're going to go on a date night to see a movie, it better be worth it. So I'm not really too pumped to go see like an indie movie that maybe got okay ratings and like decent word of mouth and spend like $150, dinner, tickets, snacks to the theater, all that kind of stuff, and then be really butthurt when I leave and I don't like the movie, right? So the fact that I can spend $25, kid goes to bed, I make my wife dinner, we have like a glass of wine and we hang out at home, that really excites me that I'm able to see those movies early. And if that helps those movies make more money, by all means, let's make that happen, okay? That's not to say that those movies shouldn't be in theaters, okay? Those movies are already having trouble in theaters, okay? So if it's a limited run or those movies never really got the chance or they got buried in theaters and then they eventually end up and theaters and production companies spent so much money getting them to the theaters and, you want to be nominated for an Academy Award. And so you had to spend a certain amount of time in a theater. I think that's all. It's like, it's almost becoming an outdated model. It's almost like the sitcom, right? It's the sitcom with the laugh track. It's an outdated model. And that's why a lot of them are one and dones if they get made at all. And so I think that what a lot of these streaming services are doing is pretty genius. If you've got the subscriber base and you can put a lot of eyes on really great movies, I think it's a really great thing for directors. I think it's a great thing for actors and actresses that want to be seen and stuff. I don't know it's hard with residuals and making money and that kind of stuff. Cause obviously, syndication is tough with certain things. And that's where a lot of that is kind of tough. But if it means more work and it means more people getting work and it means more indies getting picked up by certain streaming services, because I've got them all. I mean, I've got HBO Max, I've got Peacock, I've got Apple TV, because they all come with some sort of free streaming something with some credit card I got, or with my cable subscription, because I'm like you guys, I need to have sports. I can't not have a cable package simply for sports, right? And so I have the access to all those. So if, like, let's just say, apparently this movie Coda from Sundance got bought by Apple TV, huge. That's awesome. If a lot of these movies that are good at festivals that we may never see in theaters now go to these streaming services, and they have like an indie tab or like a festival darling tab, and those movies get seen by more eyeballs, that's a great thing, I think, for the movie industry.
I 100% am on. That's my exact position, Josh. That's my exact position. And I feel like, the more indie movies, the more access, because there's a lot of communities that just don't have access to these movie theaters and won't be able to see them. But, I do, where I do draw the line is when it gets to like the blockbusters, right? And what HBO Max is doing when they're putting like Space Jam 2 and King Kong versus Godzilla and all of that, when they go like, and Wonder Woman, which, I understand, times and, they got to release it at some point. Right. But, that is long-term damage. I think that is going to be bad. But yeah, I do agree. But I think, when you're talking about TV, it's the same thing that, like you said, it happened with cable, right? Like how, we kind of ended up phasing out of the concept of like paying for like all these channels. Like as you said, we like these channels, but, there's some stat, in like 2015, over 50% of cable users had cut the cord over like the past like 5 years at that point. So there's a significant amount, and a lot of that had to do with the recession that happened in 2008, 2009, 2010. A lot of people, just felt like, they had to save some pennies somewhere, and they had to cut cable off. But now streaming is like the alternative to that. But now we're reaching a point where we're pretty much having so many different streaming services. Right now they're free, but in a couple of years when they're not free and they're not on the, the Verizon bill on the credit card or whatever, and we have to start paying for them, we're gonna have to start making some choices. And I don't know what kind of choices we're gonna be making, especially with all these new ones that continue to come out, like Paramount Plus and whatnot.
Yeah, there's even more coming. The thing, Josh, though, is you're spot on, right? Because audiences, for the most part, agree with what you're saying. Vast majority of audiences say you're giving me the option to stay home, or you're giving me the option to pay $20 plus popcorn, plus gas, plus parking, plus all this stuff where it adds up to like $85.
Yep.
I'm going to pick the free option. Literally, that RB3 and I debated this a couple of weeks ago. And that's the case. The only issue is filmmakers hate it. They hate it. Audiences love it, but filmmakers always feel like my movie deserves to be in a theater. But obviously now they're starting to move away from that because of the way that streaming services are giving you basically upfront, saying it's going to be seen by many people. This is what we're giving you. My thing too, Josh, and I kind of want to toss it in this direction when it comes to award stuff, because I have this crazy theory that I tossed to RB3 a couple weeks ago that I heard on a podcast, actually, that we're starting to become now where all the major, big, huge movies, like RB3 said, are still going to be like must go see, Avengers 4, Avengers 8 in theaters. So that's never going to die as far as movie theater goes. But when it comes to awards contention type stuff, I feel like most of that is now on TV anyway. Like most of the good movies were on Netflix streaming, whether it be The Irishman, Marriage Story, whether it be any other type of movie that people are enjoying, or whether it be Emmy nominated series like I May Destroy You or When They See Us or stuff like that. That's more award stuff too. I'm starting to see a future where maybe the line between film and TV miniseries is starting to get so blurred to the point that I can kind of convince RB3, or I can kind of convince you that When They See Us should be Oscar nominated, or I May Destroy You should be Oscar nominated, or some other miniseries that is really well done and kind of like 4 or 5 episodes. That's where you're starting to get like, I think people are seeing that more than they're seeing kind of the indie darling movies. I don't know what you think of that.
Yeah, I think I've thought about this way too much, because I keep thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, where am I going to cut the cord? How am I going to cut the cord? Can I go without Steeler football? Okay, now I live on the West Coast, so I have to get the ticket. Now if the Steelers are good, which they were this year, I got like 8 games because a couple prime times, a couple mainstreams, whatever. The other time I just either took my brother's code from his ticket or because back in the day I would go to a bar. Now that I have a kid, I can't really go to a bar. Okay. So let's just say I get the ticket. That's $100 for the season. Wash it out over 4 months, $28-30 a month. Then the playoffs are on, network television. So where do I put that? YouTube TV, my local news. I don't even watch local news. But what I'm saying is where do I pick and choose and things? But I'm kind of old school in the fact that I love to turn on the TV and flick through channels. Okay. So that's more of like a therapeutic thing for me. So I kind of want to keep that, which helps me because then it pays for a lot of the other streaming services. So that's like all molded into one. Okay. Sure. But that being said, I think eventually what we may see, and Robinhood or not, AMC, this stock thing, wherever we are on certain things, is I don't know if eventually something like an Amazon or a Netflix starts becoming a brick and mortar and we almost go into like some weird kind of reversal of fortunes, or we get a cable service like Verizon or Cox or Spectrum or AT&T or whatever that start buying streaming services to then put onto your cable package, and then you pay a little bit more in the cable package and you can tune into it via your remote on the cable package and you can kind of pick your streaming services. I don't know how that tech would work, but eventually cable's either going to phase itself out or get bought out, and you're going to be able to watch like, hey, here's my live TV that I pay an extra $8.99 for on Netflix, and these are the channels that I get. Or Netflix is going to, Disney is then going to acquire Netflix, and Netflix is going to acquire something else, and AMC is going to be acquired by somewhere else. And then all of a sudden we're back to the same model where everything is under an Amazon or a Netflix banner, and we're somehow watching all of them via the same banner, but we can tune into live TV via our Netflix subscription. These are the channel packages I'm paying for. Because listen, I have like all of the channels, and I don't know if I know what's on 95% of them.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about like that combining like of all of those brands, I think that's kind of what we're starting to see a little bit more and more of, right? I think about this conversation, think about my mom's, right? And all my mom really watches like HGTV. She loves HGTV, right?
See?
So and then like, but the thing is like they have like a lot of the programming still going, but they only have new episodes of the Property Brothers, like one of their biggest stars. They only have the new episodes on Discovery Plus. So now the only way my mom could watch new episodes of Property Brothers is getting Discovery Plus. So like on top of paying for the HGTV with the cable bill, she's also paying for it extra for on top of with the Discovery Plus. And by the way, Discovery ends up, and we end up getting Discovery Plus, and you look at all the channels Discovery actually owns. They own Lifetime, Hallmark, like literally almost all of like that block of channels. And then exactly, and then you think about Viacom, right? Same thing, MTV, Comedy Central, all of these other channels that they own. They own Paramount, VH1. And then, all of these cable channels are still connected. They have their own streaming services connected to their conglomerates, to their channels. It's just a question of when will they merge? Like when will we see things co-streaming? Same thing with Disney. Disney owns ABC, owns ESPN, owns Freeform, and when is the day that all of the Freeform content, all the ESPN content, all the ABC content is also going to be streaming live on Hulu at the same time, for like the subscribers.
I think of we're going back towards these huge, we've already kind of been there. It's like these huge conglomerates, and you can go to your big box store and you're like, hey, this is everything that I want. I want Netflix, I want this, I want that, I want this. And you're going to maybe have to sacrifice some stuff, or you're going to have to basically start paying the exact same amount that you were paying for in cable to begin with.
Which is what a lot of people are starting to do now, especially me, because I pretty much pay for all these on my own, to be honest. And it's a lot of money. But I think the live sports of it all, I like that you brought it up, Josh, because I really do feel like that's something that's so underrated, because for the most part, you can only find live sports on some sort of cable package, or or TV package, which has been kind of difficult for most people. And being a massive sports guy that I am, I watch a basketball game every day, like literally every night.
I follow you on Twitter, Ace. I see. I follow you on Twitter.
Literally, I saw the Sixers last night, and I saw the Lakers play the day before, and tonight, obviously, the Suns are playing.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like, I need to watch sports no matter what. Like, it's never going to go away. So when Netflix decides to buy some sort of package, or when maybe some of these other platforms are starting to stream these games, I think that's when it's game over as far as cable. Cable's dead for sure. That's definitely going to be the case.
Well, you know, the only thing that cable has, I guess, working for it, as opposed to, say, streaming, is honestly the buffering situation and like the on-off situation, right? It's like, what's my internet like? How fast is it going to get? Am I going to buffer? What's going to, you know what I mean? And so then
it's internet. It's internet. It's the internet problem.
Yeah. And that's why I'm saying I love turning on cable, because I know that it's not going to buffer. You know, it's like, there is something about it that, you know, if you get Hulu Live, you're 8 seconds to 10 seconds behind your buddy that's on cable on a game, right? Yeah. And then, you know, again, it's that feeling of safety when I turn on the TV, because I have some buddies who are Steelers fans, and like, hey man, do you have the ticket? I'm like, go buy the ticket. If you don't have TV, I'm not responsible. Like, hey, yeah, come over. But by the way, we don't get the Steeler game. I was like, well, I'm not coming over then, just so you're aware of the situation. So yeah, I think then it becomes like an internet war. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about like, who can provide the fastest, best internet so I don't buffer, and you can provide me with the highest quality television so that, you know, my daughter isn't watching Nickelodeon and I'm watching something on the other TV and I'm buffering because we can't have two TVs going on two different streaming services.
Well, speaking of internet, we have to talk about the idea of how HBO Max is owned by an internet company.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are kind of ignoring the fact that a lot of the reason why they chose to put all their products and all their movies and all their content on HBO Max is because they want people to be on their app so they can use more of their internet and so you can use more of their product, because that's kind of the way it goes, which kind of leads me to another point where I heard a movie podcast that I really love and listen to, that they started to talk about the idea of how movies get turned into miniseries and TV shows because of the staying on the platform power of it all, right? Where it's like, you want people to stay on the app as long as possible.
Right.
So TV series actually make more money for streaming apps than movies do. So a lot of treatments for TVs, for movie specs or for movie pitches are getting turned into TV shows where they're like, hey, can you add a couple, 100 more pages to this and make it a TV show? Or can you add a few more hours to this and make it a TV show? It's the Zack Snyder effect, right? Sure. Where it's like, I have a movie. It's like, no, don't make it a movie. Make it a mini series, because if it's a mini series, more people will stay on the app longer, will make more money.
Well, I think we're seeing that with WandaVision. I think WandaVision is fantastic. It would be a very confusing movie or a very short-lived movie where you're letting these things breathe. Certain shows, certain miniseries that you could tell at one point were movies and then became miniseries because you can see where like certain characters were added and whatever the case may be. I mean, I like that Winter Soldier looks and Falcon looks super fun. A lot of different shows on HBO or HBO Max and any of these series is you're giving these filmmakers / writers room to breathe. Whereas before you're like, hey, you got to jam this in a 2-hour movie. Good luck. And you saw where a lot of people struggled. Luckily the MCU was able to, you can thank Iron Man for all this, but if Iron Man wasn't a success, you'd be looking at the DC situation where, and then you're gonna jam a Justice League in there because you're trying to compete with the Avengers and it doesn't really work, and you're trying to jam a Superman movie in there when you didn't need it, and then you're trying to jam Batman back in, and then Wonder Woman 1984, yada yada yada. You didn't have the room to breathe, whereas Marvel had that room to breathe, to write, to figure things out, and really build out characters in order for like, as I kind of called it, like the Warp Tour, when the Warp Tour finally got together, all those bands that were together, I'm aging myself, but a music festival, right? Like you had
tour.
yeah, right. When you have the music festival and they're all together, you're like, I'm going to see everybody. Or you could have gone and seen your small concerts, or your small, but all those people individually, or let's do the Avengers and get them all together. Yeah. And that's kind of what you're getting now with the MCU, with what I imagine DC is just salivating over by seeing what's possible and how people are just glomming on. And not even that, but in the Star Wars universe with Mandalorian, they knew it was going to be a success. They did not know that it was going to be zeitgeist. I don't think. Because when my brother and my parents are watching Mandalorian, that's when you know it's hit zeitgeist.
Yeah, when your mom is buying a Baby Yoda t-shirt or a Baby Yoda sweater, you know it's real, and that's what my mom got. She's like, look at my Baby Yoda merch, and I'm like, how do you even know about Baby Yoda? Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely, that's very true, right? Where it's the idea of like, hey, don't worry about cutting this into a under 2-hour film in order to make profit in the movie theater. Movie theaters don't even exist anymore. So why not turn that script into a mini series where we can actually make more profit because you're on our app and we don't have to worry about doing the whole release schedule inside a movie theater, which kind of leads to my final point, which is kind of me circling back to my first point, which is the awards contention. I tweeted this out and no one literally liked my tweet, but I said, what if we do see a future where most of the quality stuff that we're seeing is so much going to streaming and so much going to TV series that like I May Destroy You is an Oscar nominated film, or Small Axe is an Oscar-nominated film. Just the whole thing is an Oscar-nominated film. Or what was the other one I said? When They See Us. To me, that feels like a movie. It's a long movie. It's like a 5-hour movie, but it's a movie, right? It's the whole OJ Made in America, Last Dance effect, where it's like, is that a show or is that a movie? We still don't know.
Well, the OJ Made in America is probably like the most compelling case to like the series thing, because that was, it did air as a series, but it's a movie. It won Oscar for best documentary.
That was my thing, where I was like, that to me is like where we could see narrative films start to do that, where it's like just one long movie, but it's spread out in like 5 episodes. And now you could be like, look at this quality stuff. It's all on streaming. We got to nominate it for stuff.
I mean, both solid points. I don't know if you guys watched The Undoing with Nicole Kidman, but
yes,
loves that show.
Yes,
that's a movie, boys. That's a movie.
Yeah,
and that could have been like a 2-hour movie, but they were able to really extend it and make it into that mini series. But really and truly, like, it's a 5-hour movie. It
feels like a movie, right?
5-hour movie. Yeah. Whereas back in the day, that would have been one of those movies that our parents went to see in the theater and came out and they were like, "Oh my God!" Like that was that. But now it's an HBO miniseries. It's like in a story that where like an old movie maybe would have been made into a miniseries. It's like, do you remember Basketball Diaries? Do you remember the Leonardo DiCaprio movie when he plays the heroin addict and whatever? That original movie, when it first was submitted to Sundance, was 4 hours and 26 minutes.
Dang. Okay? Wow.
They brought it down to like 2.5 hours, I think, was the final runtime. But like, if they had loved it, if Sundance had loved it and aired it, it would have sold to an Apple TV or Netflix or something and been Basketball Diaries and been a 5-part miniseries.
And that makes me think about that documentary that came out this year that is getting a lot of acclaim, Collective. I don't know if y'all heard of it. It's like a 4-hour documentary or something like that. And part of me wonders, like, if they were to like re-chop that into like a 4-part, like 1-hour thing or whatever, like how would that work? Same thing they did with Tarantino with Hateful Eight, right? With Netflix, like they chopped that into a miniseries. So I don't know. It's curious. It's fascinating.
Either way, guys, we're going to go to break. After the break, we're going to be talking about our top 5 shows of 2020. So make sure you guys stick around.
This ain't funny, so don't you dare laugh. With the 4/5 divide you in half. You getting at me equals a bloodbath. You do the math, take you out the equation. This ain't funny, so don't you dare laugh.
Did you watch Judas and the Black Messiah this weekend? Well, check out RB3's review of the new Fred Hampton movie, available on First Cut. enjoy. And while I will say the middle might be a little dry, the beginning is really accelerating and the end is powerful and moving and tragic. And while for the most part it does play as a typical biopic, there are elements of like the mystery genre or like the undercover, like detective genre that I played with a little bit here, but it's not in a sympathetic view because, you know, you're really rooting for Fred Hampton. Otherwise, I think it's an incredibly powerful film to watch, especially during Black History Month. And just to see Daniel Kaluuya's portrayal of Fred Hampton is absolutely worth the price of admission. Also, Lakeith Stanfield was great. Dominique Fishback as Fred Hampton's fiance in this movie was phenomenal. Like I said, Jesse Plemons was great. Martin Sheen, and all of the performances all across the board were absolutely great. You know, I haven't really been familiar with director Shaka King's filmography, but I'm excited to look more into that after watching Judas and the Black Messiah. And besides my couple of critiques, I really genuinely think is one of the better movies I've seen this year.
Check out our new website on geeksofcolor.co/first-cut to check out our reviews, our videos, and articles that pertain to everything First Cut related. Check it out.
Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
What is up, guys? We're back talking about our top 5 TV shows of 2020. Now we're getting to the top 5 list. We don't have to necessarily kind of, you know, go around the table or anything, but any TV shows that really stood out to you for 2020? I think it was a good year in TV. Josh, I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I mean, it kind of had to be.
It did.
Because we were stuck inside for a lot of it. You know, the beginning of the pandemic was Tiger King, and that like took over.
Still haven't seen it.
And it's, I mean, it was wild. I think it was more so for like the social media angle of it all. Really, that was way more fun than because the actual docuseries is kind of shocking at first, and then it really is not at the end. It's okay. It's not like, oh my God, this is how it ends. Like it kind of ends weirdly, and it's okay, right? It's more so the lasting effect of Tiger King that is more entertaining than the actual show. But you know, unfortunately, I had a TV show in 2020, and a pandemic really kind of crushed us getting a second season. But I thought it was a really fun idea. I thought it was a really fun show. And it's a shame that, and I don't want to say a shame, but you know, with how streaming is and everything, is that when a show airs on cable at 10 p.m. during a pandemic, there's only so much competition I can get at 10 p.m. that isn't the news or people either falling asleep or watching their streaming services, you know? So I think we were a victim to that, which is a real bummer, but that's the last I'll plug of Eating History. But I think that when we were talking about it earlier, is that like every streaming service had their pinnacle show this year that got me to watch that streaming service. Okay. So for instance, I think the best show of 2020 was hands down Ted Lasso. I think it was the nicest, most positive, funny, cool, like everything about Ted Lasso was just heartfelt, and it was a show that made you feel good. Jason Sudeikis crushes it. It has dark moments. It has hilarious moments. And it got me to buy Apple TV.
That's the thing. I think if more people had, I don't know, maybe a lot of people do have it. I just don't. It's the one streaming service I don't have. Yeah. So I haven't been able to see it, but I definitely want to see it. Yeah.
It's worth it, even if you get it for a couple months and you cancel. I mean, I'm sure the Apple overlords hear me right now.
They might, yeah.
But it's totally worth it. Ted Lasso was by far, I watched it all the way through. Amanda was like, oh, people keep telling me about Ted Lasso, because that's how it works with my wife, is like, I can't tell her that the TV's good. Somebody else has to tell her, and she's like, oh, somebody told me Ted Lasso is really good. And I'm like,
I hate that. I've gotten that from my parents too. We're like, I heard about this show. I'm like, Mom, I'm the one who's been saying about that show for freaking ever.
But it's so then Amanda started watching it. I watched it all the way through with her again. So I watched it twice all the way through, enjoyed it just as much as I did the first time. And when I'm feeling down, I throw an episode of Ted Lasso on, or I've just started the series over again and I'll throw it on for a workout, whatever. It's just totally worth your time.
That's sweet.
That's
I
great.
gotta check that one out for sure.
RB3, you want to give a shout out to one?
Just one. Well, I give a shout out to a
couple.
few real quick. Well, for one, it was a phenomenal year, like in like television, like overall, like you said, like for just across the board. I actually like really ended up really enjoying a lot of stuff on like premium cable. So like
HBO.
you know, like HBO, but also shout out to Stars too. Really delivered with P Valley.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
I need to see this because you're not. This one that just keeps popping up on my radar, and I have to see this. Okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's a stripper. It's strippers, and you know when you hear it's a stripper show, you're like, all right, you know, I don't know what I'm going into, but it's like
a show called P Valley, which is just a different level.
yeah. But it's all kinds of. But it's just craziness. Like it's a little zany, but also really serious with like characters you can really care about, and it deals with a lot of angles that you just wouldn't anticipate. So it's really really dope. That's definitely one I wanted to highlight, and of course like, but if I had to go for like, and of course like Lovecraft Country too on HBO Max is also
that was really
for me
good,
as well.
Weird and dark, not really usually my type of thing, and I was kind of terrified half the time. But I needed. Listen, I have to give Jordan Peele. I mean, he scares the shit out of me every time he does anything. But if he does a show on HBO, I have to watch it because I know it's going to be worth my time.
Yeah. No, that one was super dope. But my two favorite shows this year, like two favorite for sure TV shows, I got a shout out. Number one was like The Last Dance. We've talked about it extensively.
Last Dance to me was like one of the staple TV shows of 2020, where it felt like basketball fans were getting into it, but also like non-basketball fans who had nothing to do with it, don't know Michael Jordan that much, finally got to know Michael Jordan.
Very few shows anymore are event television. Like, can't wait to watch it, especially like in our social media culture where you're like, don't spoil it, don't go on social media. Last Dance is one of those shows.
It became memed. Like there was like 30 memes off of it. Every episode had something unique. The shrug meme, I took that personal meme.
Love that.
It's incredible. It really did show me as like a modern basketball fan who grew up with like Kobe and Nash, the era before that, which was Jordan. I didn't grow up with the Jordan era, so me being like this Steve Nash, Kobe guy, finally got to see all the hype of Michael Jordan, and I was like, all right, I saw Space Jam, but this is different.
We were talking about we were talking about Jordan and stuff earlier on Good People Live, and just how like growing up in that era, Jordan was everything. It was everything. Anything he touched, you wanted. Anything he did, you wanted to do. He got people from Pittsburgh to cheer for a team from Cleveland, because you went over and you're like, hey, I'm a Cavs fan simply so I can watch NBA games and then watch Jordan come to Cleveland. Like that was why you became an NBA fan. That was it. But The Last Dance was just, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted from the Tiger documentary, because I'm such a giant Tiger Woods fan, such a giant golf fan. And it was okay. You
didn't like it? I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved it, but I wanted more. I wanted like a 5-part Last Dance. Sure. Every person that ever knew Tiger ever. That's what I wanted from the Tiger Woods documentary. And I wanted Tiger to be a part of it. And you're never going to get Tiger Woods to be a part of anything that doesn't show him in a good light ever.
No, which is why I think it worked. If I'm being honest, I talked to RB3 about the Tiger doc real quick. And I mentioned that the idea of like, we have to get away from Tiger narrating his own story, because otherwise it's just going to be a completely different story than what it actually is, which is why I enjoyed that Tiger documentary. But The Last Dance is a different level. I just really felt like, man, this is incredible.
Go ahead. And then one more show that I wanted to really give a shout out to, and this was a real late catch for me that I really found at the very last second. But man, when I found out, I was really moved by it, and that was I May Destroy You. By Michaela Cole, man. I mean, I was like, it was really tough because like, I was really hesitant to watch the show. Obviously, all three of us are men, and it's kind of tough. When you just hear a pitch about a show about a woman getting raped, you're just like, oh man,
I'm like, I'm good. I'm not watching that.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just hard. It's just beating up. But I thought I got into it and I watched the first episode, and what I really found is that this is one of the most rawest, like honest shows like ever, but still has like so much artistic integrity, like doesn't bend or doesn't like fold its message like one single bit, but at the same time it's still like soft and it's tender, like it's heavy, it's dealing with heavy subject matter, but it doesn't like linger on there. It's not like it obviously that's the core of the story, but it's not just heavy for the sake of being heavy or traumatic for the sake of being traumatic. Like there's still funny moments. It's funny but not too funny. There's warmth, but there's still like that coldness and that sadness in there too. So it's a really, really brilliant piece of television. I almost feel like it's almost like the perfect balance, almost perfect storytelling all around, just from the editing, from the camera work, because it's like very raw and like handheld and very like consistently throughout. There's even sometimes where like a characters or somebody are like having an argument or something, it could like subtly see like the lighting in the room just change and like just brighten or like intensify, and then like as it cools down or brings it back to reality, it like settles back down. It's just all these like subtle touches that are throughout the show that are just amazing pieces of filmmaking. So I got a shout out I May Destroy You for sure.
So I wrote down 20 shows, and I'm going to rattle off real quick.
Yeah.
All right. And you guys just give me a thumbs up if you've seen it and liked it or whatever. Okay.
Yes.
I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
I haven't seen that.
Didn't see it.
The Patton Oswalt, his wife, writes the book about the Golden State Killer.
Series.
Yes.
HBO, fantastic.
It's on my list. Yeah.
Rami and like Rami seasons 1 and 2.
I saw season 1. Recommend. Yeah, season 1's great.
Highly recommend. Sex Education on Netflix. Highly recommend. Ozark, obviously season 3.
Loved it.
Get a season 4, so good.
That finale was crazy.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Cheer on Netflix was a docuseries about a college cheerleading squad. Very heartfelt, very cool. Highly recommend.
I haven't seen that one.
Fargo season 4. Weird, but good.
I gotta get. I'm a huge Noah Hawley fan. Hawley fan, and I finished Legion this year. Actually. So
Fargo is always good. Always good. This season, out of like the 4 seasons, I would probably rank it as the 4th best, but that's not saying much. Do you know what I mean? Like they're all so good that it's hard to rank them. Your Honor with Bryan Cranston. It's not over yet, but a lot of it aired in 2020, coming into 2021. Really good. Queen's Gambit. Now chess is hot. The boys. Always messes with my brain. It's so genius. It's hard to wrap yourself around the themes that is that show. Obviously, Mandalorian. Dave, if you guys watch Dave is so well done.
Shouts Dave.
Dave is really, really good. Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, obviously a political show, but I think he does it better than anybody. Better Call Saul.
Yes.
Still holding strong. Still just hard.
Yes.
Schitt's Creek is, I think, the feel good story of the year that has been on for 6 years and people finally started watching it. BoJack Horseman ended in 2020, and God, that show just tugs at the heartstrings. What We Do in the Shadows is the most underrated show on TV. It is funking ridiculous. Yeah.
I reviewed that show. So I got to see a little bit early, and yes, What We Do in the Shadows I've been talking about for years. It's
Day
incredible.
1. Jackie Daytona is the superhero.
Yeah. Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah. Pen 15, another fantastic season. That show should not work, and it absolutely does. And finally, a show that got canceled after maybe my second favorite show after Ted Lasso is a show called Teenage Bounty Hunters. It was on Netflix. It only got 1 season and they canceled it. And it ended on such an amazing cliffhanger. It's one of the greatest 1 seasons of TV. If we never get a second season, it's like on the level of Freaks and Geeks and shows that were canceled after 1 season. Highly on Netflix. Teenage Bounty Hunters, can't recommend it enough.
Wow, I gotta watch this one. Yeah.
That's crazy. You know what's interesting? How many shows, and I know this is me sounding like I'm super biased, but maybe I am, were on HBO this year. I mean, you said I May Destroy You. I Know This Much Is True was a very popular show that got a lot of love. There was also
The Undoing.
The Vow. Did you guys see The Vow?
I did, yeah. It got a little long at points.
It did.
But
yeah, I've been keeping up with that story mainly because I've been following Smallville for years.
Yeah.
So I knew all about that. But there's so many that was on HBO this year. The Outsider. Did you guys see The Outsider? I feel like I'm the only one who saw it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love that show.
Really
Loved
good.
it.
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the best Stephen King adaptations. Super creepy.
Yeah.
Super grounded. So it felt real. Like you really did feel like a demon was there and a demon was real.
I shouldn't have watched that show, but for some reason I was just so bored during pandemic at points that I was like, I guess I'm watching this now.
There was like not a single jump scare, but you were always ready for one. I was clenched. I was like, what is it going to jump at me? But it never did.
I can't believe I put myself through that, but I did.
Yeah, it was a lot for sure. But yeah, there's so many incredible shows. The one that I really want to give a shout out to, I've done it a million times, but Hulu, Devs on FX is an incredible show.
Yeah.
Could not get into that.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's super weird.
You know, me and robots just.
Yeah. AI world, robots, you know, artificial intelligence, all that jazz. But I love that show. But I really do feel like so many incredible TV shows are just popping up every year and just becoming more and more quality and different styles of TV shows, which I think is really cool. So, Josh, thank you so much for doing this, man. This was a lot of fun, man.
The best. Loved it. Loved being here. Miss you guys.
Go ahead and plug everything you want to plug, man.
Hey, just check us out, the Good People Association at Good People GPA, the Good People Association YouTube, Good People GPA on Twitch. I'm at Josh Macuga, Twitter and Instagram. You can see me every day, 9 a.m. Pacific on the Positivity Report. So that's me.
There you go. RB3, where can everyone find you?
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Director RB3.
I'm at Squire the Race, guys, and obviously follow us at First Cut as well. Subscribe to First Cut if you haven't done so already, and subscribe to First Cut TMO on social media. By the way, guys, and Twitch. And for the First Cut crew, guys, we are peacing out. Peace out.